Hi, my name is Matthias Johnson, and I am here with Irina Yarovoy, and we are here to talk to you about the colonial history of ballroom dancing and to dissect the origins and original meanings of a few of the dances. At the end, we will also be releasing a website where you can look into the history of other dances. So let's take a look at a ballroom dancing competition.
We come now to the third dance, the eternal battle twixt cat and cur. Will he? Won't he? The answer's always no. Toy with my emotions with an exotic and erotic rumba. Thank you, Ross.
Okay, pause. That was called the rumba, and the announcer right before the dance said a statement about this being an exotic and erotic rumba, about toying with emotions. A little strange, a little bit off. And this is a Latin American dance competition in England. So what do many Latin American people call una rumba? A rumba, what is it? Well, it's a dance party. Here's an example of a classic rumba dance party in Cuba featuring 6/8 cowbell rhythms, call and response, singing, drumming, and much more. So immediately, there seems to be some major confusion. In the dance party clip, one of the instruments being played was a ceramic pot that was being blown. This instrument served as a precursor to brass instruments in the charanga bands of Cuba. But what on earth do these forms of cultural expression have anything to do with each other? One of the primary people responsible for this pervasive misnomer is Doris Lavelle and her husband Pierre. So let's take a look at an interview with Doris, where she explains how she came up with the dance.
So many foreigners come to our studio during the war. When I danced with these Cubans, I found that they were using a different rhythm, and I felt a little uncomfortable. So we decided, as soon as it was possible, to go to the home of the rumba, Cuba, which we did after the war. As soon as the Bank of England allowed us the currency to go, there we got to know the only really professional who taught there, Pepe Rivera. And he immediately said to Pierre, "But you are dancing on the wrong rhythm." So we set about learning it. Every night we went to Cuban clubs until about 4 in the morning, watching the rumba, dancing the rumba, having lessons the next day. This we did for a period of about 3 weeks or a month. And we came back to England with this rumba, which did not start on at the one in the bar. It started on the second beat of the bar. And English people just were they were very difficult to make them see what a wonderful dance this was. And we pushed on with it. We ourselves demonstrated it. We always got very much applause. And eventually, after a certain number of years of trying and us going back to Cuba, every 2 or 3 years coming back with marvelous variations, and eventually we got the English public and the teachers to start to dance it. Now we had to name the steps, and you will find later that I call steps hockey stick, natural top, spiral. Well, we named all these steps. We gave them names which we thought probably were rather like what we were doing with our feet. For instance, on a spiral, you rather dance like a spiral staircase. The hockey stick is rather the shape of a hockey stick. The top, we turn to the right or the left on the spot, and so on. And these names we named and are now in the syllabus of every society all over the world. Fan, hockey stick, natural top.
Clearly, the dance she's dancing is not the Afro-Cuban rumba. So if it's not rumba, what is it? Here is a segment of the family tree for international ballroom rumba. It is derived from son cubano dance with bolero music with ballet technique.
This video is a side-by-side comparison between son cubano and international rumba. Son cubano is a dance from Cuba, and international rumba is a competitive ballroom dance whose highest competition is arguably in Blackpool, England. These two dances bear a lot of structural similarity. However, there are some key differences to note, mainly the straight knees and turned out feet of the British version.
Here is a larger snapshot of the family tree for international rumba and son. It's also important to note that the rumba misnomer is also present in North American music.
The vast majority of the African and Afro-Cuban styles that influenced the evolution of the international rumba have in common their dependence on a cyclical, repeating rhythmic cell. It is often called a clave, meaning a key, and usually played either on rhythm sticks, called claves, or on a cowbell. For example, son clave sounds like this. And it is theorized by some to be a direct descendant of a 12/8 rhythm called fume fume from Bantu sub-Saharan Africa. Small modifications of the clave rhythm, for example inverting it or shifting one of the beats, produce entirely distinct grooves, oftentimes with steps on completely different beats. The rumba dance party at the beginning of the video featured the bembe cowbell pattern that goes like this. Western music notation featuring a starting point labeled as a 1 or a beginning of a measure doesn't tend to work very well with these sorts of rhythms, and this is one of the reasons why Doris Lavelle said that it was very difficult to get the English people to dance on the 2, because in reality, in son, when you dance on the 2, you are dancing on one of the beats of the conga drum.
Let's take a look at a few other dance forms from the African diaspora. Let's look at samba de roda from Brazil and the ring shot from North America. In pre-colonial sub-Saharan Africa, all aspects of life were sacred, and thus there were many religious dance forms, and danced religions came with the African diaspora almost anywhere they went. These two danced religions make for an interesting comparison because they are so similar. However, there's a key difference. Significantly, Protestant enslavers banned owning a drum on penalty of hand amputation. In North America, talking drums were used to organize revolts. The timbre of speech was imitated on a drum to talk across many miles. So the ring shout resorts to other forms of percussion, such as clapping, shouting, stomping, and washboard rhythms. This had a profound impact on the development of jazz.
The enslaved African peoples also tended to have an ironic sense of humor. This is a video of a dance called the cakewalk. If you ever heard the phrase, "it is a piece of cake," it refers to this dance. It was created to mock the stately court and ball dances of the people who would whip them in the fields. However, the European colonizers loved this dance so much that they made the enslaved Africans compete in competitions for a cake, and whoever danced the cakewalk the best would take the cake. There is a dance with a similar origin from Brazil, known as machixe. It is actually the origin of the ballroom samba dance. In the years following the end of enslavement in the Western Hemisphere, many people of African descent moved from the rural areas where they had lived on the plantations into the big cities. This led to the creation of the Lindy Hop, a jazz dance that led to the early racial integration of the New York City dance halls. So what did the British Victorian dance teachers do when they got their hands on it?
Ladies and gentlemen, the jitterbug. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think you'll all agree that there's hardly a dance that will grace our ballrooms. But from it has evolved another dance, the jive.
Lindy Hop is the original swing dance, but the standardized swing dances, like jive and East Coast swing, were modified oftentimes to make them much easier to teach. Especially in North America, where franchise dance studios hire inexperienced teachers, the standardization of the dance became very profitable. And if we look at the technique of jive or East Coast swing compared to Lindy Hop, in some ways the parameters are flipped. In jive and East Coast swing, there is a swing in the hips that is concave upwards, while in Lindy Hop, there is a bounce or a groove that is concave downwards, with the landing being the emphasis. In fact, in many of the ballroom dances, you will find that the parameters, for lack of a better term, are flipped in comparison to the original form of the dance. What's usually missing is an understanding of the meaning of the dance. Lindy Hop was named for Charles Lindbergh's flight across the ocean. He happened to be a white supremacist, but that's a different story. And the shape of every step is the same as the shape of his flight. There is a takeoff and a landing, which is distinctly different from the technique that is taught in ballroom dance schools. Importantly, European dances tend to organize their technique around a perception of the body that is above the ground, while African and African Diaspora dances are respectfully grounded and caress the earth. This difference in relationship with the earth can also be seen in other areas of life, like agriculture. Western civilization's monoculture fields are very much domination-based, while the agroecology methods of indigenous peoples from all over the world feature a deep relationship with the earth. In fact, the idea of humans having dominion over the earth is written right into the sacred religious texts of the European colonizers. And dominion, domestication, and domination all happen to come from the same Latin root word. The difference is also evident in the fact that ballroom dances, although many of them originated in the African diaspora, are taught and competed in a hierarchical fashion, while they emerged from underground dance forms that were kept alive in secret on plantations under penalty of death. It would be wrong not to mention the immense amount of influence the indigenous dance forms have had on Western Hemisphere dance forms. Here are a few examples, but these things can be incredibly difficult to trace due to the fact that they are oral traditions. So a palimpsest is a piece of papyrus that has been written on and then erased and repurposed for another piece of writing, because papyrus is very expensive. Importantly, the old writing underneath is still visible. This is a great analogy for what has happened to the African diaspora dances in the ballroom dance world. In between the lines of the standardized steps in the syllabuses and technique books, you find stories of rebellion and joy in the face of immense oppression, and of creativity in combining things from very different cultures to create a new form of richness. What happened when the ballroom dances were standardized was like filling in some gaps in a puzzle. Or maybe a lot of gaps. Or maybe we only had a few pieces to begin with. For this reason, we created an interactive database of the evolution of the partner dances according to what we have been able to verify. We offer no guarantees as to its correctness, as it comes from oral traditions, and history is not fully knowable. Please use it with care and consideration. Thank you for your time.